Hello, dear friends. You're watching talk show Ulken. My name is Aselia Barova. Today we will talk about food culture. Not everyone thinks about the fact that food is the entire universe, which contains a variety of meanings. Food can be the carrier of spirituality, national and cultural code. By what a person eats, one can determine his character, political and religious views. But nutritional issues today are much more serious. Today, life itself comes to the fore as the main equivalent to the quality of nutrition. There is much in common between taste and color, and the COVID-19 pandemic has become a unifying force in nutrition. Doctors all over the world vied with each other about the importance of healthy food in the treatment and rehabilitation of patients with coronavirus infection. What to do to protect yourself from a dangerous virus? Let's figure it out. In our studio, the therapist of the City Polyclinic number 4 of the city of Almaty, Jibek. Hello, Nuridin.
Hello. I'm very glad to be present at this program. I hope it will be useful for our citizens. Nuridin Jibek, physician therapist of City Polyclinic number 4 of Almaty.
Welcome to the Ulken program. We talk a lot about drugs, medical procedures, and how to cure disease, while completely forgetting about how we can prevent it. How important is food culture in the aspect of health?
Diseases are often acquired by the people themselves because in many respects they become more susceptible to diseases due to irrational nutrition, in particular with the wrong diet, which is very typical for our people. This includes eating at night and eating a lot of high-calorie fatty foods, for example, eating fast food, which became very popular today. After all, if earlier many diseases that people now suffer from before were mostly found among older people, now unfortunately they can be found in younger people too, and they suffer from them much more often. This includes such diseases as obesity and diabetes. That is the root of all the health problems that now exist in our healthcare are probably in our unhealthy lifestyle, and the way we eat is largely associated with our work schedules. That is, we are used to going to work on empty stomach, we are coming to work in the morning without having any breakfast, and then we have lunch in a hurry. That is on the go, we have breakfast and lunch. Then this leads to a detrimental effect on human health.
All right. How should you eat breakfast properly? And in general, is there such a need? Because some people don't want to have breakfast in the morning at all.
Yes, we as doctors promote proper nutrition, and breakfast should take up about 60% of the daily diet.
Even so.
Breakfast is very important. I know that many people do not have breakfast, unfortunately, because first of all, they wake up late, they get ready for work in a hurry. But it seems to me that it is better to be late for work sometimes and not forget about eating breakfast. Because breakfast is... Firstly, it gives a reserve of energy, and secondly, it allows the body to properly spend this energy. That is, if a person is hungry and, for example, did not eat in the first half of the day, then the reserves of the body begin to be wasted, which does not have a very positive effect on the health itself.
And then write in the note, why were you late for work? I had to have breakfast, right? Well, let's say a person has been following a healthy, balanced diet for many years. His food contains all the vitamins, amino acids, elements necessary for the body to function. And there are no bad foods in his diet. How big is the risk of contracting a coronavirus in this case?
Look, coronavirus infection is an infection transmitted by airborne droplets, and in case of healthy lifestyle, not so much the likelihood of infection decreases, but the likelihood of suffering a milder form of the infection. That is, if we imagine that a person eats right, he has no bad habits. He, therefore, will have good immunity, thanks to which he will be able to cope with this infection easier and faster. But again, I cannot state that if a person eats properly and does not have any bad habits and addictions, that he will not get infected. This is not entirely true.
Older people with vascular diseases, heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure are at the high risk of contracting COVID-19. How acute is the issue of nutrition in those cases?
For this group of patients, we recommend a dietary meal. Fortunately, we have it since the Soviet Union. That is, this is a diet according to nutritional care by Pevsner. According to it, each disease has its own nutritional care. For example, if we are talking about diabetes, then these patients are not recommended to use simple carbohydrates, that is, sweet, starchy foods, which in the future may have an effect on the pancreas. If we are talking about people with cardiovascular diseases, then we often recommend that they almost completely limit the use of salt in their diet. Because salt, unfortunately, rises blood pressure and it leads to edema, that is, to stagnation of fluid in the body. And at the same time, as we know, many diseases of the cardiovascular system are also associated with irrational, unhealthy diet. Therefore, nutritional care is very important, and we recommend many of our patients to start treatment first of all with the right regime and the diet.
Пациентам мы рекомендуем именно вот когда мы лечение им прописываем, мы начинаем именно с режима и диеты.
Is it possible to say what makes up the diet of a person knowing his diagnosis, and vice versa?
Sure you may, because as I said, a person gains many diseases himself. That is, if a person eats fast food, fatty foods, drinks soda every day, then this person has an increased risk of diabetes. It is proven fact. That is, it is a second-type diabetes, non-insulin dependent. It usually appears in a person only because of bad nutrition. Of course, genetics can also play some role in this, as we say, if relatives also had diabetes, but in many ways, if we see a diagnosis, we rather assume what is on his plate. In general, any diagnosis is precisely related to a person's plate. The same with gallstone disease. Unfortunately, gallstone disease recently started to appear among younger people. That is, if earlier people of the older generation, elderly people, were sick from it, now unfortunately because of nutrition more young people became susceptible to it. As a result, stones are formed, people start to feel discomfort in the abdominal area, ulcers have become more frequent. This is all due to unhealthy diet.
Это все связано именно с неправильным питанием.
All right, Nuruddin, let's do an experiment. I'll tell you the age and the list of meals for lunch and new possible diagnosis. All right? So a man 50 years old, his favorite dishes are solянка soup, pork steak, olive oil salad, and chocolate cake for tea. What's your verdict?
Ну, во-первых,
Well, first of all, he has a fairly large wallet
Good.
to afford such a diet. Well, and secondly, we see that this person has an unbalanced diet. That is, the fat content and the content of carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, is high. Of course, with age, he is more likely to develop heart problems. There will be problems with the pancreas or in general with the gastrointestinal tract. This is more likely, and we can say that this is a future client of cardiologists, a future patient of cardiologists, and a future patient of endocrinologists. There is a high probability for this.
будущий пациент кардиологов и будущий пациент эндокринологов. Это высока для этого вероятность.
Second example, a woman 35 years old. She has for lunch lentil soup, vegetarian pilaf with chickpeas and brown rice, salad of fresh tomatoes, basil, arugula, and avocado. There is no tea, she does not drink with food at all. What will the doctor say?
Нет, ну суть
Well, judging by the diet, she has a very good balanced diet, if not for one thing. In general, for many people who come to us, we always recommend drinking water.
воду обязательно.
Really?
Да, 1,5 литра.
1.5 liters of water a day is the norm.
Well, in this case, you mean separately from meals. But I meant that she does not drink anything while consuming food.
Разные диетические
See, there are different diets that are popular on the internet right now. And this girl is apparently a fan of one of these diets. But still, drinking water with food means helping this food to be digested. And for this, of course, you need water. If we take tea, then it is better not to drink tea with meat, because tea, unfortunately, is a drink that unfortunately interferes with iron absorption. That is, a person who, for example, is being treated for anemia has little iron in his body, but he says to the doctor, "Yes, I eat a lot of meat a day, but for some reason, my iron level does not rise."
мяса в день, да, но у меня почему-то не поднимается. уровень.
Because he drinks tea with meat.
Yes, tea. Unfortunately, tea interferes with iron absorption, with proper iron in the body.
But this only applies to when a person eats only meat, right? And apart from meat, can such a person drink tea?
Конечно.
Of course, drinks should be present in the daily diet. You cannot get enough of fluids just from water alone, but water should occupy 70% of the water diet. That is, 70% of the liquid should be water.
Должна составлять вода.
Okay, you said it's undesirable to drink tea with food. And what about juice?
Sure you may, but again, each juice has its own limitations. That is, it is undesirable to drink juice with food, for example, because we know that not all of them are natural and there can be lots of unhealthy ingredients.
What about natural juice? Let's say freshly squeezed juice.
Yes, orange juice, for example. We have a lot of videos of Americans drinking juice at breakfast.
Американцы завтракают, запивают.
Yes, they drink orange juice.
Апельсиновый сок.
Yes, orange juice. However, orange juice is a pretty harsh chemical reagent. That is, in the morning, when our stomach is just waking up, to drink orange juice is not desirable.
Good.
Опять-таки,
Yes, again, I recommend that my patients start their day with a glass of warm water. That is, on a bedside table, there must be warm water. While you wash your face, while you take a shower, your body will wake up. And after that, you can already safely have breakfast. But we must consume juices very carefully.
к ним тоже нужно относиться очень так внимательно.
If we drink anything with food, then we interfere with production of the correct amount of gastric juice, and the food will be poorly digested. Here's another opinion. Therefore, it's forbidden to drink any liquids with food.
Желудочный сок, он
Gastric juice, it is reflexively produced. That is, at the moment when we feel, for example, the smell of food, it is already being produced.
автоматически вырабатывается. Но когда
But when a person drinks it with water, this chemical substrate, it gets diluted.
то есть та химия,
That's what I'm talking
That is, the
about.
chemical power that the gastric juice has is somewhat reduced. But at the same time, if a person, for example, does not drink, this is a harsh chemical reagent. There is a possibility that when food drops lower, it will go down through the stomach into the intestines, right? There is a possibility that the stomach wall will already begin to corrode from chemical exposure.
от химического воздействия.
Summing up, can we say that the food culture that a person maintains from childhood throughout his life dictates what diseases he will endure?
Конечно, да.
Of course, yes, because I will say it again that diseases of the gastrointestinal tract very often appear among young people. These are gastritis, ulcers, cholelithiasis, and pancreatitis. Unfortunately, they appear in the younger organism now. Why? This again depends on parents. Many parents now work, there is no one to look after the child, and the child himself from childhood is accustomed to the fact that here I will buy a sandwich in a store, here I will buy a burger, eat it, and everything will be okay. Unfortunately, compensatory abilities decrease with age. That is, if in his youth a person can somehow cope with these loads, that is, the stomach works well, the intestines work like a watch, but unfortunately our health reserve decreases with age.
Наш резерв с возрастом снижается.
And then it will manifest as a disease
It will
later.
manifest itself for sure, and this is a very important point. Therefore, my advice to parents is to take the nutrition of their children seriously, not to spare either money or time for it, because in the future treatment will cost more.
Потому что в дальнейшем дороже обойдется лечение.
Well, Nuruddin, thank you for finding time for our program and our viewers. Stay healthy.
Вам
Thank you very much. Take care of yourself. Be healthy.
будьте здоровы.
Thank you. So we figured out a direct link between health and nutrition. It would seem that we have been hearing about this since childhood, but we're finding deep meaning only now when the threat of a pandemic is hanging over the world. What's next? It's time to learn and study. It's time to study the issues of food and the effect of food on humans. There is a whole science, nutritional science. And today we invited Kugirshyn Sirgazina, a nutritionist and a consultant on nutritional rationalization, to our studio. Hello, Kugirshyn.
Kugirshyn Sirgazina, nutritionist, consultant on nutritional rationalization.
We're very glad that you took the time for us. Please tell me what exactly nutritional science studies. Nutritional science studies the areas of human health, in particular, his nutrition as well as the normalization of his lifestyle. Kugirshyn, COVID-19 showed mankind its weak points, the lungs, heart, blood vessels. How do modern people need to eat in order to strengthen their positions and repel the virus? First of all, you need to strengthen the immune system. First of all, you need to eat in a balanced way. That is, have sufficient intake of proteins and minimum content of carbohydrates. But the minimum doesn't mean the amount that we have now. most likely it will need to be reduced because this fast carbohydrates, which now we extract from food, there are too much of them in our diet, and most people eat more carbohydrates. When you feel the first urge of hunger, the first thing a person does is rush to carbohydrates. In this case, it's better to balance the food more towards proteins, right? Proteins, fat, and more complex carbohydrates. Well, yes, it's generally necessary to form a new habit. Yes. Do not immediately run and eat, for example, bread, right? You wanted to say that. Any baking goods. Yes, these are already such simple sugars. Besides the feeling of satiety, they give us nothing. The same goes for quick bites in the form of chocolates, candies, buns, and more. In addition, they also contain a very large amount of trans fats, which inhibit our cells and naturally harm our body. Reduce our immunity, you mean? Yes, of course. This, first of all, lowers the strength of our immunity. Where to find it? I think immunity needs to be strengthened. There are lots of fruits and vegetables on our table. It's worth focusing on the use of these particular products and limit the amount of fast carbs. Good. Please tell me what needs to be included and what should be excluded from the diet of children and babies. Our children have a growing organism, and they need a lot of energy and accordingly food. That is, the field of rationalizing children's nutrition is a very relevant topic today. Because by investing in children's health and nutrition, you are making a big contribution to their future. Because a person has a large reserve of health in the future will not have problems, either from the gastrointestinal tract or from the heart and other diseases. What should be included in the diet and what should be excluded? You should include enough protein in the diet of children. Moreover, the proportion of protein of animal origin should be more than 80%. I know from my children that it can be very difficult to offer a child such a large amount of meat. They refuse it. But protein is essential for the growth of our children. What kind of meat do you recommend? First of all, of course, you should include turkey meat in your diet. This is very dietary meat. Chicken and beef too. If there is an urgent need to replace it in the child's diet, then it's worth including nuts, highly fermented hard cheeses, legumes, and cereals, of course. But they, of course, will not fully compensate for the lack of animal protein which will appear due to the lack of meat. Our territorial and national identity in many ways, of course, influences the culture of food. And the main product in our diet, as you have already said, of course, is meat. But now fatty meat that we like is not in our favor, right? How to balance our diet so that food is beneficial and not harmful? Before that, we talked about children, but what should people do in this case in general? Our adult generation, of course, is very fond of meat. They eat meat for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. But we are not using as much energy as we used to. Our ancestors, back in the day, spent a lot of time outdoors. And surely they spent a lot of energy. They led a fairly active lifestyle. Yes, they led a fairly active lifestyle, and in this regard, they needed protein and meat. But at the moment, since there is physical inactivity in the life of Kazakhstan people, we spend most of the time at work. In this case, of course, it's worth limiting the consumption of meat, especially in the afternoon, and focus on the consumption of fats and proteins in the morning, and make the afternoon part of the diet much lighter.
То есть на обед еще можно употребить.
So you can still eat meat for lunch. For lunch, of course. For dinner, it's better to already consume vegetable forms of protein. These are legumes, cheeses, and nuts. Good. Dairy and sour milk products have also been on the tables of the local population since ancient times. However, current research is not in favor of lactose. There's even milk intolerance. What would you say about this aspect of nutrition? Of course, lactose intolerance, in particular casein protein, is present in some of the world's population. In principle, for a person already an adult, the consumption of raw milk, that is unfermented fresh milk, is not a good choice. It would be more rational to completely refuse fresh milk. Fermented milk, in particular kefir, is an excellent source of bifidobacteria, which our body needs. Our cheeses and cottage cheeses are excellent products. They should, of course, be included in the diet. Please tell me how lactose intolerance manifests itself. Maybe we're using and do not even know that we have an intolerance, and we think that these are some side effects from other foods. Yes, this is a very common occurrence because in addition to obvious allergies when we see a skin reaction, there are also obvious visual symptoms. Yes, visual and palpable forms of food allergy. There is also so-called latent allergy, and also you may not see it on your blood analysis. Analysis? Yes, if you take special tests for allergens, it will show you antibodies to allergens. The casein milk protein intolerance may not show up as a lactose intolerance. How to find out about this hidden allergy? Latent food intolerance is disguised as headaches. That is, after drinking milk or eating ice cream, people begin to have headaches. They feel pain in the diaphragm, and even they feel an increase in their heart rate. This may indicate that you are lactose intolerant. Ugyrshin, this summer, such a drink as Samoa gained popularity. It seems to be far from a new product for Kazakhstan citizens, but nevertheless, for some, it turned out to be a real wonder. Someone used it for medical purposes. What are the beneficial properties of Samoa? First of all, Samoa in its composition is very close to mother's milk, which contains a very large amount of immunoglobulin. It supports our immunity. Consuming up to 1 liter of Samoa, in my opinion, was a very rational move. Because human immunity, most of the immunity, about 80%, is located in the human gastrointestinal tract. And as most nutritionists say, don't consider food that your grandmother would not identify as food. And in this case, a return to the origins, to what our ancestors ate. This is a very rational move in the fight against pandemic. Thank you very much, Ugyrshin, for coming and sharing your tips. I think that thanks to them, our viewers will be able to somehow adjust their diet in favor of proper nutrition. And of course, we wish you to stay healthy. Thank you for inviting me. There are 2 types of milk, albumin and casein. The second type includes milk from almost all farm animals, and albumin type includes only 2 types of milk, maternal and mare. Not surprisingly, in the midst of the pandemic, it was Samoa that nurtured a large number of Kazakhstan citizens and helped them to get well. We will talk about the wonderful properties of this drink with Kurmangali Zhumagulov. Hello, Kurmangali.
Kurmangali Zhumagulov, the owner of the manufacturing company for Samoa and Kumis.
Kurmangali, I see that you did not come empty-handed. As a real Kazakh, I would say. In which glass, which drink?
Here is Kumis and here is Samoa.
May I try?
Sure, go ahead.
I think this is Samoa, right? Please, Tell me, what are the beneficial properties of this drink and what just got into my body?
попало в мой организм.
Вообще,
In general, it is correct to call it mare's milk.
Парное.
Fresh drawn.
Fresh mare's milk, yes, because saumal is a mixture of kumis and fresh mare's milk. It is called saumal.
оно называется салмал.
Saumal.
It's just that people started to call it that. Someone called mare's milk saumal, and people started to use it. What kind of properties does it have? Saumal has the highest natural antibiotic. Saumal contains almost the entire group of B vitamins. There is vitamin E, vitamin D, which you can get only from the sun.
Витамин
There are also more than 40 macro and micro elements.
более 40 видов макро-микроэлементов есть.
Можно я уточню?
May I clarify one point again? Saumal is fresh milk mixed with kumis, right?
Правильно?
Все верно.
Yes, that's right.
Please tell us about the history of saumal.
Ну,
Well, it has been consumed by Kazakhs since the ancient times. This is our national drink. Kumis is made from mare's fresh milk. Kumis is a fermented milk product. It has always been in our diet, but it has not been used so widely. Maybe the last 10 years people started to drink it more actively.
последние, может быть, лет 10 начал активно применяться это вот, в народе, да. Салмал,
А с чем это связано?
What was the reason for this? What do you think?
Yes,
конечно, это
of course, because of its effectiveness, its beneficial properties. They have a great effect on human body.
очень хорошо. Это
Не, ну наши же от...
Well, our grandparents also consumed this drink.
этот напиток.
Why did they stop and only started to drink it more often in the last 10 years?
наверное,
Well, probably everything from our original Kazakh treatment recipes, it somehow became unconventional over time. And the medical drugs we are taking now,
которые мы сейчас принимаем, они
Заменили.
Somehow
yes, it
replaced it.
replaced kumis, but we are now going back to our origins. This is very encouraging.
Когда я
When I was little, well, I also grew up in the city.
городе,
Everyone talked mainly about the benefits of cow's milk.
коровьего молока. И, конечно
And
же,
of course, I mostly drank it.
ну,
But cow's milk is often poorly digested by adults.
Другое дело саумал.
On the opposite, saumal, it is much better.
Одного от
What is the difference between both of them?
ну, вы
Well, you said it yourself that cow's milk has a casein origin. There, the protein is coarser, it is not digested completely. Mare's milk is of the albumin type. It is almost 100% digestible. Well, saumal is useful to everyone. It works well on the gastrointestinal tract and other internal organs. It works at the cellular level. That is, if you have any diseases, it means that there is an imbalance in the cell. What does saumal or mare's fresh milk do?
клеточном уровне. То есть, если у вас есть
It penetrates cells and balances them.
означает, что есть дисбаланс в клетке. Что делает салмал?
If you have more potassium, less calcium, and so on, then saumal will balance everything.
И балансирует. Если у вас больше калия, меньше кальция, так
Thus, immunity rises and pushes out all the diseases.
тем самым
In a nutshell,
поднимается иммунитет и выталкивает все ваши болезни. Если в двух словах расскажу. Мы
we are not doctors, we are practitioners.
на практике.
Yes, we hear that in practice.
What we have seen in our practice is that when 40 or 50% of the lungs are affected, literally in a day or two, mare's milk starts to improve the health condition.
действовать.
And hundreds of people, not only when they come to us, they drink it at the source. It is of course very important to drink mare's milk at the source.
Источника. То есть
That is, it must be consumed right after milking. We also have delivery services. We deliver fresh mare's milk within the first 3 hours after milking, and it is also useful.
Ну да, вот, полезный...
Oh yes, the beneficial properties of mare's milk are preserved for 3-4 hours after milking, and then the fermentation process begins,
Да?
which by the way reduces the content of the necessary
И
substances.
не у всех есть, кстати,
By the way, not everyone has the opportunity to buy fresh mare's milk.
молоко
What would you recommend to do
жителям.
for city residents?
For these, there is a delivery services. We deliver in the morning after milking. The cow leaves immediately.
сразу же
If he does not have time, if there are many orders, we send the milk after second, third round of milking.
вторую
But within the above-mentioned 3-4 hours.
3-4
Да, это
часов, да?
обязательно.
Yes, this is an indispensable condition, of course, to deliver it within the first 3 hours. It also gives a good results before childbirth, during pregnancy, and after childbirth,
После родов
because saumal positively affects the fetus and its formation. As soon as the child is born, after 10 days from his birth, he can also be given saumal. Only in limited quantities, that is, the dosage is very important here, and it affects not only the lungs, it has a comprehensive effect. There is no such thing that it will only help you if you have coronavirus or lung disease. It has an effect also on heart, the central nervous system, because this virus, it mutates and it affects the entire organism. What does Saumal do? It balances it all. That is, it finds weak spots and helps them to recover. For example, if there are problems with liver, it helps the liver. If there is a problem with the stomach and intestinal tract, then it helps there too. That is, it works as a comprehensive help.
Кишечному тракту. То есть в комплексе.
Вы сами...
Do you prescribe who requires kummas therapy and who requires Saumal therapy yourself?
Вы...
What criteria do you rely on?
Saumal must be carefully taken by those people who have, for example, high levels of sugar. If there are stones in the bile ducts, you need to drink it carefully.
В протоках желчи, если камни есть, тоже нужно аккуратно пить.
Именно
You mean Saumal?
Yes, I mean Saumal. There are contraindications in kummis. If the pressure is high, if there are problems in the stomach, in the gastrointestinal tract, it should not be drunk either.
Вы позволите.
May I?
Yes, of course, but after drinking Saumal for 3, 5, 7 days, this is very individual. We can add kummis therapy. Then,
Учить хумус.
What did you say? It's so delicious. I didn't even hear what you said.
enjoy your meal. There are no two Saumals alike, as well as kummis.
Есть
There is kummis which is impossible to drink, but this also depends on the human body. If his acidity is low, he wants such a vigorous kummis, someone vice versa, and therefore it is difficult to guess. Or now there is a dispute about which is the best kummis. You know, the best kummis is the one that you drank as a child. If we look at Kazakhstan as a whole, we will see that there are different regions, and that means that the method of making kummis is different everywhere. We try to produce something in between, something that will be loved by everyone.
мы такое нечто среднее, усредненное, да, выпускаем, вот, которым всем бы понравилось.
Знаете, Курмангали, я бы
You
сказала,
know, Kurmangali, I would say that
лучше...
I just tasted the best kummas, the most delicious one.
Я до
Thank
сих
you.
пор не могу
I still can't figure out why does it taste so great. I tried kummas before.
Я пила его.
But this one,
Вот этот вот какой-то...
did you bring something very specially selected?
Сегодня встал.
People always say something like that to us.
I feel some kind of creamy taste. I cannot recognize it.
The aftertaste.
Yes, the aftertaste. I've never tried this.
Why? Because it primarily depends on the saumal itself. When your horse's diet and exercise are balanced, you get good saumal. Good saumal produces good kummis. And our method of making kummis is the same method our grandfathers used. At the moment, many companies automated the whole process. But this hands energy, it is transmitted to the final product. 3 different people who make kummis that came from 1 barrel of saumal, in the end, produce 3 different tastes. It also depends on the person.
Хумус из одной бочки, да, салмала, 3 разных вкуса выходит. Это зависит еще от человека.
So you only have one person making kummas, right?
Да?
Yes.
Вы
And it's you, or no?
Или нет?
Я
I participate.
Вы знаете, я прям
You know, I can't stop drinking, but we must continue the program.
обалденно.
Awesome taste. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating at all.
Действительно потрясающе.
Really, it has amazing taste. To be more precise, wonderful aftertaste. And even the smell is great.
Вам большое.
Well, thank you very much for the interesting conversation and for visiting our Ulken.
И пусть настал
And let there always be fresh saumal and kummas with such an amazing taste on the tables of Kazakhstan citizens.
здоровый
Healthy eating is boring and not tasty. Eco shops have been battling this stereotype for several years. And I must admit that they battled it quite successfully. Every year, more and more of such places open up in the cities of Kazakhstan and the world.
И сегодня
Today, in the Ulken E studio, the owner of a vegetarian food store, Sergey Gulyakovsky. Please, welcome.
Здравствуйте.
Hello, Sergey.
Hello, Aselь. Sergey Gulikovsky, owner of vegetarian food store.
Спасибо, что пришли.
Thank you for coming.
Скажите, пожалуйста,
How many years have you been in the business of organic and healthy products?
чистых и полезных продуктов.
About 3 years, since 2017. First, we started as an online store, and an offline point has existed for more than 2 years.
What was your motivation?
I had a lot of vegetarian friends, and I wanted to provide them with service, because they often ordered groceries from Canada or abroad, and I wanted to be convenient and comfortable for them.
And affordable. And what about you?
Unfortunately, no, I am not vegetarian. And it's such an interesting thing that most of the owners of vegetarian stores are not vegetarians for some reason.
The cobbler always wears the worst shoes.
Yes, that is right. But I strive for this. It is very important.
Okay, that's okay. How did the buyer's mood change?
More people have become interested in vegetarian and healthy products. That is, a rising trend that came to us from the West. That's why there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood. They are vegetarians. Because
И вдохновленные их
And inspired by their example, now you think the younger generation is also following this trend.
And because they realized that a vegetarian diet, it is very good for health, especially women. That is, it is beneficial for skin, hair, teeth. Also, vegetarian diet is very good for...
And the figure.
Yes, including the figure.
All right. Did the demand for vegetarian products increase during the quarantine period?
It's hard to say because quarantine is such a difficult time for business, because sales decreased, but there were a lot of calls, requests and so on. That is, I would say more yes than no.
Well, you noticed it, right? Do you have any statistics?
Yes, of course.
Because during quarantine, many people gained weight, and maybe they would also be interested in other effective ways to maintain a normal weight.
Quite right, because initially people wanted to support their immunity, and they bought products such as black seed oil and hemp oil. These are very valuable foods and are very good for health. And then, when we were all at home in quarantine, many put on extra weight, and after that, people again began to turn to us in order to eat healthier and, well, also lose weight.
Sergey, you said that you're not a vegetarian, but do you try the products that you have on the store shelves yourself?
Yes, of course. This is the criteria for the receipt of goods on the shelf. We have to try it ourselves or introduce it to some reference audience. If it passes this test, then it hits the shelves.
And as for the manufacturer, as a rule, you sell only imported products. Do you have producers from Kazakhstan?
We also have goods made by our local producers, about 10%. About 10%. They are already starting to produce peanut butter, granola, etc. But we still bring 90% from Russia, and Russia in turn from other countries.
Tell me, is it true that everything tasty is harmful and everything healthy is not tasty and boring?
Of course not. This is a delusion. You can cook both useful and unhealthy foods, either in a tasty and non-tasty way. Let's say we have this urbech with cashews. These are essentially just grated cashews. But in this consistency, it is practically a dessert. There is a paste, peanut chocolate, which is very similar to Nutella, but it is much healthier.
And is it inferior in taste?
Maybe a little, but there is such a thing that people who are used to eating chips, for example, they will feel the difference, since chips contains a lot of additives and flavor enhancers.
Yes, which are very addictive, by the way.
Yes, this is a very important point, and of course, it will not be tasty for such people.
It will taste dry.
Yes, but if you wait a little, let the taste buds detox, then healthy food will become tasty again. That is the right natural food. It will start to sparkle with new colors, so to speak.
I think if people start to practice fasting for health purposes, after such a cleaning, these products will seem the cleanest and, most importantly, the most useful to them. Could you please tell us what alternatives to harmful products are offered by the eco shops today?
Well, we have vegan sausages. That is, it is a completely vegetable product.
Can you tell me what does it contain?
Yes, sausages are made from wheat protein. It is fermented. Then there are spices and natural flavors and colors and so on.
I would really love to try.
Yes, this is very interesting product, especially in the transition phase. Let's say a person decides to change his style of food. He buys this sausage and he can also make himself a sandwich, add it to pizza, olivier, okroshka, in general to any dish.
What else?
There is chocolate, the ultra-healthy chocolate, which consists of 3 or 4 ingredients. Well, that is in supermarkets, there are 3 or 4 lines of composition, but here there are 3 or 4 ingredients, and with such chocolate, well, you won't put on extra weight, because the body, well, there are no identical calories, they are different, and it's easier for the body to digest such chocolate, and it is more filling. That is, you don't want to eat more of it. We also have green buckwheat instead of brown, steamed buckwheat.
А что, коричневая гречка разве?
Well, is brown buckwheat a harmful product?
No, not at all.
Please enlighten me.
It's just that initially all the buckwheat is green, but in order to store it for a longer period of time, it is steamed and it turns brown.
Oh, and it's considered steamed, right? How much we don't even know about in this life.
Yes, it is certainly more useful in many ways. There are more trace elements and nutrients, you know. We also see that now many people are lactose intolerant.
Наблюдается непереносимость лактозы.
Да.
That's true.
And instead of cow's milk, we offer almond, coconut, oat milk, and soy milk, and so on. That's it. In principle, there are a lot of options.
But what about gluten intolerance?
У нас
We have gluten-free oatmeal. It is delicious too.
они тоже очень вкусные.
У вас
You
есть...
have everything, as I understand.
А как по поводу
Sergey, what about sugar?
тоже
Also one of the harmful products,
особенностей?
especially now.
Да, у нас
Yes, we also have sugar substitutes. This is Jerusalem artichoke syrup. This is one of our top products. It can even be used by diabetics and people who cannot eat ordinary refined sugar. There is also cane sugar, coconut sugar, and not-calorie sugar substitutes like erythritol and stevia. That is, there are also a lot to choose from.
Тогда очень резонный вопрос по
Then a very reasonable question about the availability of these products for a wide segment of population.
являются,
Are they expensive or can everyone afford them?
может каждый себе их позволить.
ну,
Well, it's rather average, slightly above average. The price is the same. Milk, of course, will be more expensive than usual. Ordinary milk now costs around 500 tenge per liter.
сейчас
The price for our milk starts somewhere around 2000 tenge per liter.
начинается где-то за литр. Оно уже приближается сейчас к 2000.
Ну, большой.
Well, it's a big difference.
Yes, a significant one.
And what about sugar?
Сахар
Sugar, well, for example, coconut sugar is also quite expensive. That is, 100 grams of coconut sugar costs 1200 tenge. 450 grams of cane sugar costs 1400. That is, it is already a little cheaper.
Ну, здоровье,
But health is more expensive, right?
Penny wise, pound foolish.
с одной стороны,
Well, on the one hand, if they don't save on proper nutrition, they will save on buying medical drugs, right?
медикаментов, да,
Совершенно
Сергей?
верно.
Absolutely.
Чтобы вы
What advice would you give to people who have eaten what they want all their lives and during pandemic faced the need
пандемией
to switch to a healthy diet?
необходимостью переходить на здоровое питание?
Ну, во-первых,
Well, first of all, I invite them to our store
Sure.
и подобрать
and pick up something for themselves. Well, actually, the main recommendation is to start gradually. That is, do not change your diet dramatically.
So that there is no shock to the body.
Yes, it can be too much for your budget and can be a shock to the body, and most likely it will be an experiment for a week. It will be much more effective to replace one ingredient or one dish with a healthier alternative and gradually replace everything. And then it will pass imperceptibly without stress, and the body itself will tell you where to go.
скажет, как бы, куда нужно вырулить.
Спасибо большое, Сергей.
Thank you very much, Sergey, for such an interesting conversation.
Я думаю,
I think that it was quite useful for our viewers.
для нашего
I wish your business prosperity
бизнеса я
and, of course, beneficial products to your customers.
клиентов.
Большое
Thanks a lot.
Мы прошли
We have gone all the way from proving that the diet needs to be changed to the very last step, how to make a delicious and healthy meal. An active supporter of a healthy lifestyle and a blogger known as Organic Katya, Ekaterina Isabayeva will help us in this endeavor.
Катя, Екатерина.
Katya, hello.
Катя, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте.
Hello.
Ekaterina Isabayeva, active supporter of a healthy lifestyle and a wholesome plant-based nutrition, the author of the popular page on the social network about healthy and a tasty food.
Ну,
Well, first of all, thanks for taking the time in your busy schedule. Your blog has over 24,000 readers. This means that so many people find your nutritional advice helpful. Today, their number will increase.
полезными ваши советы.
In connection with the COVID-19 pandemic,
Количество, я думаю,
doctors around the world
в связи с пандемией
recommend that patients
всего мира рекомендуют
try to enrich their diet
рацион
with vegetables,
и ягодами.
fruits, and berries. You have specialized in vegan nutrition for 9 years.
Давайте поясним.
First, let's clarify what vegan diet entails
И что
and what is it about plant foods that make them so good for your health. In short, vegan diet is a type of diet when a person does not consume animal products. There is also a vegetarian diet.
Да, вот я
I wanted to ask you, often people confuse vegetarianism and veganism. What's the difference? Vegetarianism is an easier form. People also eat a plant-based diet, but their diet contains partially eggs or some kind of dairy products. If you go deeper, you will see that veganism is more than just a diet without animal products. That is, people who adhere to this lifestyle, they also give up animal skin and fur in their clothes to protect animals. They actively protect the life of animals. They fight for it.
Расскажите тогда, пожалуйста.
Please tell us how such a diet affects the state of the body and how did it affect you personally? Yes, I always talk only about my experience, and in my blog I talk about it as, well, for me personally, this means good health, excellent health, and strong immunity. And by the way, it was during the quarantine period that the amount of my followers increased greatly. I saw women, mothers, and men among my followers. Those who are concerned about their health write to me asking how they can strengthen their immune system. So the topic of COVID is also directly related to this. You know, I've heard that those who eat plant-based foods, they require less time for sleep than those who eat animal foods. Yes, there is such a thing. How many hours a day do you need to rest? 8 hours is enough for me. Well, this is an average duration of sleep. Yes, I thought that 4 hours will be enough to you. In general, it's quite enough if you lead such a calm lifestyle. I'm also encouraging the topic on my page about maintaining youth. Yes, maintaining youth, that's why sleep for me is time for beauty, that I would not cut. But there is enough energy during the day because it's not wasted on digesting heavy, unhealthy foods. Most often, many people have this when after a hearty dinner, they want to lie down and take a nap. This suggests that it was a heavy food. Yes, or the wrong combination of foods. In general, difficult for digestion, for our unique component of the body, the intestine. In general, I believe that our intestines are not our second brain, but our first brain. It's very difficult for us Kazakhs to give up meat. How long it has been since you've given up this product and eggs too? In fact, I grew up in an ordinary family where all animal products were always on table. When I got married into a Kazakh family with traditional food and tables laid with a lot of meat, and it's also the norm. So how long it's been since you've given up meat? It has been 9 years. 9 years. How did your family react to this? Do you also feed them only plant-based foods? For example, did your husband give up meat in solidarity with you? Yes, but it took a while. That is first through my personal experience. At the beginning, I wasn't even public about it. I read the information, I read the research. Then when I realized that this lifestyle gives me incredible energy, it opened new facets and new opportunities, and not only in physical aspects. Super abilities. Well, we'll talk about this in another program. Something reminiscent of that. It's a good feeling. First of all, some kind of female energy when you can do something else. So you can juggle lots of things at the same time. Yes. This is an impulse for growth, I would say. Good. What data and research do you rely on in your experience? First of all, of course, I relied on my own well-being, on the well-being of my family. We live with our parents. It's a very traditional Kazakh family. I have 3 children. The youngest, he does not eat meat since childhood, from birth. My middle children, they can eat sometimes, but in general, they eat meat very rarely. It's not banned completely. We have no bans in the family. Everything is taught through example, through question and answer. How did the in-laws react to it? The in-laws and my parents reacted perfectly. They drink smoothies in the morning. Our father-in-law lives with us now. He doesn't eat meat also? Yes, he's 72 years old. He does not smoke, he does not drink. He does 600 push-ups a day. How lovely. Yes, he goes hiking to the mountains, and I always tell how proud I am of my father-in-law. Although I don't believe it either. And of course, there have been many research books in my life. Books by Galina Shatalova and Paul Breck. I studied a lot about fasting, about body superability as a result from fasting. Well, there was such a period in my life. Increased intuition, as far as I know. Can you confirm this fact? Yes. Then there were a lot of books and studies, such as the Chinese study, McGregor. Then I studied the dependence of a person on food in general. There is a very excellent book called Overcoming Food Addictions. It is said that dairy products are very addictive. Yes. They affect us and they are very addictive. I would also like to touch on this topic. You have given up meat, you have given up eggs, you gave up all animal products, including dairy products. What are you replacing these products with? Is there some kind of deficiency in the body? Are there any changes? Maybe in the early stages you felt yourself a little weak. Can you elaborate on this? Thank you for the question. This is actually a very important question. Probably, this is the question I'm asked every day in my blog. How to start, how to replace foods, and what is it in general? People ask these questions when they switch to plant-based food. I do not promote veganism. Everyone has their own healthy lifestyle. Everyone has their own idea of healthy nutrition. But health cannot be ignored now, especially after the current situation in the world. Every person started to think about it. My blog is about the fact that vegetable food, a variety of salads, dishes, they're not boring, they're delicious. They are saturated with microelements, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And a person with the right diet, he's well fed for a long time. He's satisfied, and then he has positive results after. Every day I receive both questions and answers with gratitude that it turned out to be so easy. I'm more for, not necessarily that a person should give up meat. I understand the realities. Well, it should be deliberate refusal, not some kind of violence against oneself. Because if you force yourself and give up something, then you become kind of overstrained and nervous and angry. In my profile, it even says, no fanaticism. I know that, or rather, I'm even sure that many viewers were inspired by your experience. Let's share the fastest, easiest, and healthiest recipe of yours so that your new fans can get started right away. And of course, we take as a basis the most ordinary products that every housewife has in her refrigerator. It's actually easy to feed yourself. The main thing is to understand where is fat, where is protein, and where is a carbohydrate. For me, for example, it's very tasty to drink a smoothie for breakfast. You eat your norm of greens per day, or rather drink them. So wait a minute, let's talk more in details here. What's in this smoothie? You can take a green banana as a basis. I'll clarify why green. Because there is more fiber and less sugar, and therefore a lower glycemic index than in an overripe sweet banana. Always buy green bananas, or at least those with a green tail. We can take this banana or avocado, add a little flaxseed. You say like these ingredients can easily be found in every fridge. These are actually affordable products, basic ones that you just have to go and ask for. You're the nearest vegetable shop or at the bazaar. Flaxseed is sold in the spice department. Good. By the way, I love spices. I studied a lot about them, and it's the spices that give the dish an interesting flavor and makes it fun. What about our smoothie? Okay, about smoothie. A bunch of spinach or a bunch of fresh lettuce, cilantro, parsley. Any greens as a base will do. Also, in general, the basis for smoothies is made up from greens. Some sweet fruits, just a little, for example, an apple or a pear. Avocados are good fats. Or if you don't have avocado, you can add coconut oil. Now it's very popular. It seems to me that more and more women know about it. It can be applied to the face, hair, and consumed with food. Yes, these are healthy fats. They will be useful to every woman, especially for breakfast, because fats are better absorbed in the morning. A glass of water, greens, as I said, any sweet fruit. You can put a vegetable. I love adding celery and zucchini. Again, you have a useful product in your glass, and you will not even notice it at all. Children love this smoothie very much. But I would like to make a reservation that a very sweet smoothie is also not very useful for the pancreas. Do not accustom yourself to too sweet cocktails, because sometimes just putting the berries and whipping them with milk is no longer useful. And by the way, there is such a misconception that you can sit on a fruit diet and lose weight. But they too have sugar in their composition, although natural. Does it somehow affect our weight? In fact, eating a lot of fruit is not good for us. A small handful a day is enough, or preferably every other day. I would recommend berries. They are very high in antioxidants. Or generally adhere to seasoned fruits and berries. As soon as the season of fruits or berries stops, switch to those vegetables and fruits that are available at the moment. Can I ask you another question? Is it true that you can't eat fruit immediately after a hot meal? Or, for example, they say that it's not a good idea to mix vegetables, a simple salad made of cucumbers and tomatoes, which many of us have on our table, with a hot dish. How true is this? In fact, I would say that it's more useful not to add vegetables themselves to the diet. Yes, vegetables and not greens. The salad should consist of 50% greens and fiber. But that wasn't my question. Yes, I understood. After lunch, after dinner, fruit is not recommended. This is sugar. That is, fermentation begins in the intestines. And everything that you ate is valuable. The body is trying to take everything. Vitamins, microelements, and bam, there is sweetness. The acidity changes. Fruits are digested by one substance in our stomach, vegetables and carbohydrates by another. Therefore, mixing them is not a good idea. What kind of interval should be maintained between them? In general, it is advisable to eat fruit only in the morning, in the first part of the day, at breakfast or before breakfast, and do not overeat fruits at all. What about salad then? Salad? For example, a simple salad made of cucumbers and tomatoes. Can we eat it with a hot dish? I think this is very cool. The main thing is to add more greens. Great. The more fiber you consume, the less carbohydrates you will eat. Well, I also adhere to this rule, so that there must be some kind of live food. Along with that, cooked or fried food, you know? We have our sins too. Katya, what is your favorite dish? As I said, I'm a spice fanatic, and I'm a fan of Indian food. I really love chickpea curry with cauliflower. It can be served with basmati rice. This is generally a magical dish. It's very hearty. Most importantly, if you cook it in a good mood, with love, with gratitude, it will be perfectly digested. If we talk about desserts, well, you didn't ask about it, but I will say that chia pudding is my favorite dessert. It's very satisfying, very safe for your figure and health. That's wonderful. I think that our dear viewers who are interested in how you can eat tasty and healthy will visit Ekaterina's page. Katya, thank you. I can't wait to be home, of course, and turn your recipe into an amazing dinner myself. Health to you and your loved ones. And for those who want to know more, Katya has prepared a gift. A video recipe of another dish. Hello everyone, we're going to cook my favorite, most delicious, tender and satisfying dessert. It's easy to make. Today I will additionally use matcha tea, ripe avocado, and these beautiful physalis berries. We take chia, fill it with hot water, but not boiling water. Whisk everything vigorously and add sufficiently fat coconut milk. Mix it well and then set it aside. Next, we cut the avocado. We will need just 1/2. You can easily take it out with a spoon. And mix the avocado mass with a blender. Add a little milk, water, and the main ingredient of matcha tea. 1/2 spoon, and I sweetened it a little bit. For that, you can use Jerusalem artichoke syrup. Mix it well with a blender. If the mass is thick enough, then add a little more of coconut milk. You should get such a delicate mass. We will add it to the white part. I divided the white part into two. Add the first part and put the first layer on the bottom of the can. Here is a beautiful square jar. This is the first layer, then we decorate it with kiwi slices. To do this, clean the kiwi, cut it thinly, and put it to the walls of the jar. And this way it will be very beautiful when served. Next, let's tackle the second part, which has already stood for a while, the white chia mass. And the third layer is mango puree. To make the mango puree, cut the mango like this. We leave the bone. It is 2-3 centimeters in width. We peel and we also clean the bone. Peel off the pulp and turn the mango inside out like this. We mix the mango into puree. Pour the mango puree on the white mass. This is our third layer. We spread the sliced avocados, kiwi, and decorate it with berries. Today I have blueberries and physalis. We serve it with love and care. This is a delicious, hearty chia pudding that won't leave anyone indifferent. You need to take all the layers starting from the very bottom and enjoy it. I wish everyone a great mood and time for self-care. COVID-19 was like a wake-up call. It reminded us that we should first and foremost take care of ourselves. Our body is a unique multifunctional device, and its smooth operation depends on what kind of fuel is fed to it. And remember that every day of our lives, we can either benefit or weaken our strength. Make the right choice. This was Aysel Akbarova. Thank you for being with us in our Ulken new program. There are still many new interesting and important things ahead. Stay healthy.
Будьте здоровы.